What's up, my people? Diamond here. Let me tell you something. When I was in my 20s, you couldn't tell me that I wasn't doing good. I had the cars, the motorcycles. I lived in a nice home. I took amazing vacations. And my career, along with my income, was shooting straight up. And seeing as how I started with absolutely nothing, I felt pretty darn successful. But being older and wiser now, I can see that it wasn't all good. And I want to tell you about 6 spending habits that I left in my 20s. And thank God I left them there, because for sure they were buying me a one-way ticket to the struggle bus. And nobody wants to live their best life in their 20s only to find themselves on the struggle bus for the rest of their days. So sit back and subscribe if you haven't done so already, as I tell you how I avoided the struggle bus. I was the king of good deals, and I love electronics. And when you combine that with the fact that I worked at Best Buy, this was a recipe for a terrible spending habit, and I developed it early. This one had to go. I couldn't pass up on good deals, and to this day, I can look around my house and remember the prices I paid for certain things, and I know that these were once-in-a-lifetime deals. Truly amazing, great deals. And it took me a long time to learn this, but you know what you call a good deal on something that you didn't need? It's a waste of money. And when I add up how much I spent on these good deals, I could have cash flowed someone's college education. And don't even get me started on what that money would have turned into by the time I was 40 or 50 years old. But electronics was my vice. And looking at it through a very narrow lens, the lens that I had at the time, I didn't really see nothing wrong with it. I was working and I was making money, and I was using that money to buy things and do what I wanted to do. And I think everyone can relate to this, because your thing may not be electronics. Maybe it's shoes or hats or expensive sunglasses or traveling. But I think everybody has that one thing that they'll spend a crazy amount of money on, where they don't see anything wrong with it, but somebody looking at them will say, man, what is going on? Why would you spend that much money on that? So I think everybody can relate to this. And I want you to comment down below and tell me, what's your vice? But this one for me, spending money on electronics and good deals, just had to go. The next habit that had to go was fast food and restaurants. As a young man in my 20s, I was working 2 jobs, so I was often busy and didn't have a lot of time. So I would normally grab something quick to eat just to get me through the next shift. And that in itself wasn't a big deal. But when you combine that with the fact that me and my coworkers would go out to lunch every single day, like it got to the point where we'd have this nice big list of all these different places that we wanted to eat at, and we would just pick a place off that list. And this gets expensive really fast. This habit sort of self-corrected once I started utilizing my budget correctly, because it's easy to go out and spend $300 or $400 on restaurants or fast food, but it becomes extremely difficult to sit down and do your budget and say, I'm gonna spend $200 in the grocery store, and then right below that say, I'm gonna also spend $400 in restaurants or fast food. Something about those numbers just didn't compute for me, and I found myself reducing the amount of money that I had allocated for restaurants, because the question becomes, if you don't spend this money over here, what else could you be spending it on? The next habit that I'm so glad is gone is using credit cards, and my net worth thanks me. I know that by saying I don't use credit cards is reason enough for people to dislike this video, unsubscribe to the channel, and leave negative comments, but I don't care. It's not going to change the fact that I don't use them, and I'm really happy that I no longer use credit cards. The only good thing that came out of credit cards is that I was able to make this video right here explaining to people how to never go into credit card debt. I started using credit cards for the same reason that most people do. I was told that if I wanted to build good credit, then I needed to get a credit card, use it, and pay it on time. And if you use it responsibly, you don't have to pay any interest, and it's a great tool to build your financial future. The problem is I started off with absolutely nothing, and I'm convinced that broke people shouldn't use credit cards to build their credit. Why? 2 reasons. 1, you're developing your spending habits that's going to go with you into your 30s. And 2, if you're broke and you have access to credit cards, you're going to find yourself in debt. Why, you ask? Here's what I learned during my time of being broke. And I think anybody who's been broke in their life can relate to this. If you've been broke before, hit the like button and let me know that I'm not alone. When you're broke, you feel unfairly targeted. It's as if life is out to get you. Bad stuff just keeps happening to you. That's where you get 1 step forward and you get knocked 2 steps back. That's how it feels when you're broke. And when you have access to a credit card and these bad things come up and you don't have the money to cover it, it becomes extremely difficult not to use that credit card. I mean, after all, it's for a good cause. And that transaction just turned into debt. This developed into a terrible mindset around credit cards. I used to think that credit cards was for emergencies. Now looking back, I understand how dumb that is. Because something happens, I don't have the money, I'm going to use my credit card. I take care of it. But now how do you pay the credit card? You didn't have the money to cover the thing in the first place. But it's okay because you got time. You got 30 days before you get the bill and you got another month before you have to pay it. This was doing more damage than I knew because it was molding and shaping my mind around the fact that it's okay to use credit cards as long as you have a justified reason, and in turn, the debt that it creates is okay, which is not okay. And I'm so thankful to have credit cards out of my life. Never again will I have credit limits or available credit that exceeds the amount of cash that I have access to. The next habit that I left in my 20s was big spontaneous purchases. I remember one time I went into a motorcycle shop and I was just browsing. I walked out the motorcycle shop that day with a brand new GSXR 750. Now there's nothing wrong with buying a nice new motorcycle, but I didn't have the money to buy that. When I was in my 20s, I had the mindset that I can get whatever I wanted. I just need to figure out how, which is a good way to look at things. No one should live life with a scarcity mindset. If you want something, go out there, figure out how to get it, and then make it happen. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when I was in my 20s, my basket of tricks was small. I didn't have a lot of different ways to make stuff happen. It normally involved some type of financing, which ultimately led to debt. Now that I'm older and wiser, I have more tools at my disposal. And that's led me to make better financial decisions. And now, even if I have the money, when it comes to big purchases, I normally won't buy them that day. You see, now I'm constantly bumping my list of things I want up against things that I need. And then I'm always thinking about what else could I do with that money and how that money could work for me. And only after I've looked at it through those lenses will I make a big purchase, which rarely makes them spontaneous. Comment down below and tell me what's the biggest, most spontaneous purchase you've ever made and how did you feel about it 6 months or a year later. The fifth habit I left in my 20s is financing vehicles. Car payments suck. And I live and breathe by that. I truly feel that they suck. They suck the life out of you. They cost way too much money. And when I think about how much money that I spent on car payments in my 20s, oh my God, it's through the roof. It's by far the most expensive habit I have on this list. And I just won't do it no more. I hear people say, because interest rates are so low, you should finance that vehicle and use your money to go out and invest it. You can make much more money if you invested that money versus using it to pay for a car. Well, let me tell you something. When I was in my 20s, I didn't have some elaborate leverage investment strategy. I was financing my cars because I didn't have the money to pay for them, period. I realized when I go out and finance a new car, they're going to change the body style within a few years. So I will end up driving the old model anyway. It's depreciating faster than you could pay, so you end up upside down with negative equity. And by the time you get it paid off, you either want or need a new vehicle. And so the cycle continues. It's a complete sham. So from this point forward, I'll be selling the car that I have, saving up, paying cash, combining it with what the car brings, and I'll use that to go out and buy my next car. I'm not playing these games with these people. Right now in America, we have over $1.2 trillion in auto loan debt. That's more than credit card debt and is rapidly approaching student loan debt. So to say cars is a big part of our world is an accurate statement, and it shouldn't be. We should be focused on our retirement and vacations and how fat our bank accounts are, not how much our car payments are a month. And that's why I'm glad I left this habit in my 20s. This next habit encompasses all the others, and that's I stopped putting my immediate wants in front of my long-term goals. I've already told you that I believed I can get anything that I wanted. I just needed to figure out how. But it was that thinking that was putting my immediate wants in front of my long-term goals. And that was buying me a one-way ticket on the struggle bus. Now, I still believe I can get anything that I want, and it is up to me to figure out how to make it happen. But now I include both short and my long-term goals in that thought process. And it's this inclusion that makes sure that nothing overshadows the other, and it gives me the confidence to say that I will reach financial independence. Let me show you this in action. It's been several years since General Motors announced the C7 Corvette for the 2014 model year. And you can probably tell by watching some of my videos that I am a car guy. I love cars, and I absolutely love this car. I wanted this car, and I was making it my #1 priority to get this car. And spec the way I wanted it, it was just over $68,000. Now, I didn't have $68,000, but I wasn't gonna let that stop me. I searched high and low, and I found a product that would allow me to be able to get this car. And it was so dumb that I'm not even gonna call it by name. I'm not gonna say the name of the bank, But what it was a way to finance a vehicle like a lease, where you can finance part of the vehicle up front, put a little money down, and then after you make these payments, at the end you would have another big balloon payment, very similar to a lease. And I'm so thankful that I didn't do it. And here's why I didn't do it. As I started gearing up to buy this car, I started thinking, where am I gonna park this thing? I mean, I had a house, but am I gonna have this fancy, nice car sitting in front of a rental house? That's right, I was renting a house at the time. I didn't even own a house and I was trying to buy a $68,000 car. It was at that moment that a light bulb went off. And for the first time, I put my long-term goals in front of my immediate wants. Now, I didn't scrap my plans to buy the Corvette. I just decided that I needed to buy a house first. But it was this decision that started a domino effect of good things in my life that put me on the right path. And to this day, I still haven't bought the Corvette, but I did buy the house, which ultimately turned out to be a great decision. Because now I understand that by keeping my long-term goals in perspective and not letting my immediate short-term goals impact my long-term financial goals, I'll be able to get everything that I want and so much more. These have been the 6 spending habits that I left in my 20s, and I'm so glad that I did because they've had a major impact on my financial life and my life overall. Comment down below and tell me which spending habits you left in your 20s or which one you're trying to get rid of right now. And until next time, check out these videos for you right here. My name is Diamond. Peace.